Okay, it's time for week 13. We are really close to the end, guys, so I hope that you guys are able to finish the work, to do the work. I know it's a struggle being off campus and online, but I think that if you'll just stick with it, you can finish and be okay. Don't forget that we have a schedule for the rest of this semester. So it's week 13. So this week you're going to write your rough draft for Essay 2. And submit by Thursday. So that is your number one priority this week, is the rough draft for Essay 2. And you will also share your ideas on the discussion board. So let's look at Essay 2 together, shall we? Here's the rough draft link. Note that there are a couple of sample essays. I'm not going to open these up. I think these are student samples from previous books. It's just reminding you how to work with a text, how to write an essay with a text. So you can download the prompts here, and let's look at them together. So number 1, so you're only going to pick one of these, and remember that you should always refer back to the text. Some of these prompts ask you to put yourself into it as well. Still, though, even if it does ask for personal experience, combine them. Have personal experience plus book. Okay, so let's look at these. Number 1, by part 2 of Educated, Westover has decided she wants to get an education, has found a way to take the ACT, and has left the mountain to go to college at Brigham Young University despite her father's objections. In her first class at college, Westover recounts not knowing what the word Holocaust means. Why is this moment significant? So, remember, you have to provide enough summary for the audience that has not read the book. So you might start out on this essay just setting it up a little bit, setting up the situation that the very first classroom she'd ever been in is where this happens. And then I need you to explore, why is this moment significant? I want you to think about the different things that it does. It makes her suddenly challenge all of the things that she has been taught. She's realizing that she is, has been quite uneducated. She realizes that she has possibly been lied to. Also, she, for the first time, really understands that sorry, apologize for that. I got a little distracted. Okay, so she, for the first time, she also understands that there's a lot of evil in the world and a lot of mistreatment of human beings. And so this just sets her on a different trajectory. Knowing this information, she starts exploring, starts researching. So just think about what it does for her and how she discovers things about her education and like the path that it puts her on. Number 2. Over the course of this book, the Westover family deals with a number of accidents. Westover's brother Tyler falling asleep and driving off the road, Westover's brother Luke catching on fire, and later a very serious accident for their father. Early on, Westover writes about, quote, all the decisions that go into making a life, the choices people make together and on their own that combine to produce any single event. So see, that's from page 40. So that quote comes from earlier. But now you're applying it to what we know about the family and their accidents. What do you think she meant by this? And how does this insight apply to your own life? So I want you to talk about, if you choose this one, talk about the different decisions that go in and how these accidents resulted in various decisions. I also want you to think about your own life and how maybe 1 or 2 choices in your past led to some really major experiences or major outcomes. Number 3, throughout the book, Westover refers back to journals she kept while growing up. Sometimes she recorded events as they really felt, but many times she says she presented events as less traumatic than they really were, or used vague, shadowy language to obscure how she'd been hurt. How do these journals inform the book? Remember, inform means influence or affect. So how do these journals guide the writing of this book? And we know that a lot of times her memory is a little bit clouded, but when she is able to go back and look at writing from those exact days, those help her. Also, she's realizing in the times when she wrote vague, shadowy language, she's realizing that even as a child, she knew that things were not okay. Things were not right in her life. Just talk about, how you think these journals helped her to write this book, how they add to the truthfulness of it. Number 4. By chapter 22, Westover writes that her life was often narrated for me by others. Their voices were forceful, emphatic, absolute. It had never occurred to me that my voice might be as strong as theirs. So what is the significance of this realization? So I want you to think about just this. It's sort of a coming of age story that she's really learning to trust herself. She's learning that she has been misguided and maybe her best interest not always put first by her parents and her family. So how does she develop an identity and a voice for herself? And can you identify with this at all? Do you have experience or a story to tell that relates to this? Number 5, at Brigham Young, Tara recounts going to a professor for moral advice and instead being encouraged to apply for a very competitive study abroad program at Cambridge University, which she'd never imagined she could qualify to do. Quote, he'd seemed to say, first find out what you are capable of, then decide who you are, she writes. Has anyone ever given you advice to do something beyond what you thought you were capable? Did you follow it? So here I would certainly give some summary information for your reader. Make sure that you provide enough summary to explain what's going on and how this conversation came to be. I think that you should also talk about how this was part of Tara's coming of age, where she's really realizing that, she may be capable of more than she ever thought. And then apply it to yourself. If this is something that you can relate to, explain how this relates to your life. Finally, Westover's mother is a midwife and herbalist. How does her perception of these kinds of healing change over the course of her life? How does working change her? So this is all about the mother. We see a pretty dramatic change from the time that she starts her work. Remember, she was very skittish. She was not confident in herself as a midwife early on. She really didn't want to be. She wanted to be just an assistant. And then Jean encouraged her and really forced her, and if you want to be honest about it, to be a midwife. So, but by the end of part 2, we see that she has created a whole new persona. She is really believing in that this is God's work, and she also seems to be just running the show. She has followers. So talk about this, talk about the change in Westover's mother and what this change represented too for Tara, I think is important. I think you can talk about how, it's sort of frightening, I think, that Tara sort of loses anybody that she had in her court as far as her parents are concerned. Okay, as you're writing, don't forget the guidance for writing. Use quotes and examples as necessary. Use page numbers every time you cite something specific from the book. Just pick one of these prompts and get your rough draft, and then I'm going to give specific feedback on everybody's rough drafts this week. Good luck with this. I'm going to continue in another video in a moment.